Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. And today I'm going to give my review of AEW's Dynamite Grand Slam. Starting off the evening with our first match of the night, it is Kenny Omega versus Bryan Danielson. Number one, I thought this was a great matchup, back and forth matchup between both Omega and Bryan Danielson. Bryan was landing devastating kicks on Omega. Omega was trying to keep the pace of the match. Bryan hits a Hurricane Rana off the top rope on Omega. Omega then hits a Hurricane Rana of his own on Bryan. Bryan then hits a running knee off the top rope on Omega. Omega then gets up, hits a devastating Snapdragon suplex on Bryan off the ramp. Omega then hits a running V-trigger on Bryan from the top of the stage down the ramp on Bryan. It was absolutely brutal. Bryan then gets up, hits a backdrop off the top rope on Omega. Omega then hits an avalanche Snapdragon suplex on Bryan. Omega then goes for a one-winged angel on Bryan, but Bryan reverses the hold. Omega and Bryan both exchange in the middle of the ring, and then the bell goes off, and this match ends in a time limit draw. After the match, though, the Elite show up in the ring. They pull Bryan off of Omega, and then the Super Click hit a super kick on Bryan Danielson. Then Jurassic Express end up showing up with Christian Cage to save Bryan Danielson. A couple things I want to say about this match, man. Number one, this was a dream match in the making for years, man. I mean, if you would have told me 5 years ago that we would have saw eventually Kenny Omega versus Bryan Danielson, I would have said you guys are crazy, man, because, you know, Daniel Bryan, to me, was WWE elitist, man. I never thought he was going to leave WWE. He made one great career for himself working under Vince McMahon in WWE and had phenomenal matches in his career there. And Kenny Omega, obviously, working in New Japan, Ring of Honor, until, you know, obviously the creation of All Elite Wrestling. I just never thought that match or this match would happen, man. And we got it, you know, at Grand Slam. And this match was one crazy matchup, man. Back and forth between both Omega and Bryan Danielson. And kudos to Tony Khan. Because, and some people, you know, are like, oh, Tony Khan's a mark. You know, he's a super fan. But this man and what he's doing with AEW is allowing fans to have these dream matches come to fruition, man. Like, to have Kenny Omega versus Bryan Danielson in a matchup is just insane. And the whole Forbidden Door, you know, with AEW working with New Japan, working with Impact Wrestling, it's just insane, man. And AEW, what they're doing as a whole right now is just completely changing the game for professional wrestling. And it's making professional wrestling really cool again, man, to see what's going to happen next. All these free agents possibly showing up at AEW. I mean, we got the likes of Malachi Black, Andrade, Sting, Brody Lee, just to name a few that, you know, ended up showing up for this company and just made this company what it is today, man. This company is, I mean, right there with WWE, if not better. So hats off to Tony Khan for that. And again, I wish this match was a clean finish. But I feel like this matchup between Kenny Omega and Bryan Danielson is only the chapter one of these, you know, Daniel Bryan and Kenny Omega having a match together. I think there will be a chapter two. I think it will happen at Full Gear. I think the chapter two match will happen at Full Gear. And if I was Tony Khan, due to the fact that this match ended in a time limit draw, at Full Gear I would have a rematch between these two in a 60-minute Iron Man match at Full Gear. I think it would be absolutely insane. But again, hats off to both Kenny Omega and Bryan Danielson for giving the fans a crazy, fantastic match, man. Awesome to see. Moving on from that, we have a CM Punk segment. CM Punk says that a lot of people want to see the old CM Punk. CM Punk also talks about Team Taz. He also says that Hobbs will go to sleep when he challenges him at Rampage on Friday. Tonight. So it's going to be absolutely insane to see, man. It really will. This is the first matchup CM Punk's going to have, I guess, on national television in over 7 years. So this is going to be insane, man. Arthur Ashe Stadium is going to go absolutely insane when he has this match with Hobbs tonight. So definitely looking forward to that. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night as well. It is MJF versus Brian Pillman Jr. I thought this was a good matchup. Pillman quickly attacks MJF, turns into a back-and-forth matchup, but MJF ultimately applies the Fujiwara armbar on Pillman. Pillman ends up tapping out, and your winner of the match is MJF. Hats off to MJF for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is Malachi Black versus Cody Rhodes. I thought this was a really good matchup, back and forth matchup between both Malachi Black and Cody Rhodes. Brandy did come down to the ring with Cody. She kind of gets involved in the match a little bit. She ends up sitting right across Aleister Black in the ring, ends up flicking him off in the middle of the ring. The crowd goes crazy for that. But Malachi Black continued to keep the pace of the match. Malachi ends up spraying some kind of mist into Cody's face, pins him for the 3, and your winner of the match is Malachi Black. Couple things I'll say about this match. Number one, it was great to see Brandy Rhodes. Obviously, she took time off because her and Cody, have a family now, and she needed time off. It was great to see her back in the AEW, spotlight again. But the other thing I'll take away from this match was Cody Rhodes. Throughout this matchup, a lot of the fans were booing Cody. A lot of the fans, and then having Arn Anderson there ringside and him trying to get involved in the match, it does look like we might possibly see sometime soon that Cody Rhodes might be turning heel. I don't think Cody Rhodes is done with wrestling. I know a lot of people were saying after the first match that Malachi Black had with Cody, and Cody left his boot in the ring, kind of symbolized the fact that he might be done with professional wrestling and might want to retire. I don't think Cody Rhodes is done yet. I think Cody is going to turn heel. Maybe a good possibility he might turn on Arn Anderson and become a heel. I think it might be good for Cody to do that, to be honest with you right now. And the reason why I think Malachi Black was so much over in this matchup is because of the time that Cody had taken off. They were doing shooting a TV show. Obviously, like I said earlier, him and Brandy were starting a family. So obviously he took some time off for that as well. But the fans were completely against Cody Rhodes in this match against Malachi Black, where Malachi Black was the fan favorite going into this match. So I think Malachi Black and Cody Rhodes, that whole storyline is far from over. But I can definitely see Cody Rhodes definitely turning heel sometime soon. So again, hats off to Malachi Black for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is FTR versus Darby Allin and Sting. I thought this was a really good matchup, back and forth matchup between both teams. FTR were keeping the pace of the match. Sting hits a Stinger Splash on FTR in the corner, but then Sting ultimately applies his signature Scorpion Deathlock on FTR. And your winner of the match, or winners of the match, I should say, are Darby Allin and Sting. A couple things I'll say about this match as well, man, is Sting. Sting looks like he has not lost a beat or lost a step at all. I mean, he looks like the same old Sting that we saw back in the mid-'90s in WCW. And that might be far-fetched for most people to realize that, but I mean, the amount of matches that he has had on AEW, from the cinematic match he had with him and Darby Allin versus, I believe, Brian Cage and Ricky Starks, phenomenal match. Some of the tag team matches that he's had, even this match last night, or Wednesday night, Grand Slam. Sting brought it, man. I mean, Sting looks phenomenal. It looks like I said, he hasn't lost a step, hasn't lost a beat, man. And I definitely look forward to what's going to happen with Darby Allin and Sting next. Will we see Darby Allin and Sting become the new AEW Tag Team Champions somewhere down the line? Who knows? But I'm definitely looking forward to what's going to happen next with Darby Allin and Sting moving forward. So hats off to Darby Allin and Sting for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is the main event of AEW's Dynamite Grand Slam. It is Ruby Soho versus Britt Baker for Baker's AEW Women's Championship. I thought this was a good match as well. Back and forth matchup between Ruby and Britt Baker, with Ruby keeping the pace of the match. Baker hits a devastating swinging neck breaker off the apron on Ruby Soho that looked absolutely devastating. And then Baker ultimately applies a lockjaw on Ruby Soho, and your winner of the match, and still AEW Women's Champion, is Britt Baker. A couple of things I'll say about this match too, man, is that, it's great to see the addition of Ruby Soho. I'm glad that she's on the roster, and that's one thing to me that's always crippling AEW right now, is the women's roster. It's lacking depth right now. They don't have a lot of women on that roster. And a lot of times we're getting a lot of the same women in these same matches, where I'm hoping AEW kind of signs more women to the roster, or if not established talent that was from somewhere else that comes into AEW. I think if you can build that women's roster up, almost as if what the men's roster is right now for AEW, sky's the limit for AEW, in my honest opinion. But I think that's one thing that's kind of crippling AEW right now, is their women's roster. A couple other side news too is that, with that being said about the women's roster, is that there's big rumors going on right now that there's going to be another championship added to AEW. And according to rumors, it's supposed to be some kind of TBS Women's Championship, which I'm all for that. I think it's going to be a good thing for the women's roster to kind of give another spotlight to another female talent on that roster that will hold a championship title on AEW. I think it'd be great. Other little side news, obviously, AEW will be moving to TBS starting January of 2022, which I'm definitely excited for. I think it's going to be Dynamite on TBS, and then obviously Rampage will be continuing on TNT. And I think AEW will kind of like go back and forth from TNT to TBS with Dynamite as well. And I think they're going to have special events on TNT moving forward next year. So definitely looking forward to that, man. AEW is doing big stuff right now. I mean, there's even new rumors going on around AEW right now with Bray Wyatt. Supposedly he might show up next week, right, live Wednesday from Rochester, New York, the hometown of Brody Lee. Rest in peace to Brody Lee. That would be huge, man. I think if you bring in Wyndham Rotunda and bring him into the fold of AEW, why not put him in with the Dark Order? I think it'd be great. I think it'd be absolutely insane for him to show up. And I think it's one of those puzzle pieces that AEW needs. I think adding a talent like Wyndham Rotunda would just do great things for AEW moving forward, man. I think it'd be absolutely great. And then it would kind of highlight Dark Order as a more dark, just a sinister edge, to the Dark Order. And I think the Dark Order is great, man. Evil Uno, Cole Cabana, Stu Grayson, John Silver. Those guys, man, it's just a phenomenal team. And what Brody Lee did with that stable, man, it was just great. He brought a new spotlight to this stable, and everybody loved Brody Lee. But adding Bray Wyatt or Wyndham Rotunda, if you will, to that roster and maybe slot him into the Dark Order stable, I think will be absolutely fantastic. But this is my review of Dynamite's Grand Slam. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful, and remember, stay classic. Peace.